Hi, this is Jim from Safety Wars. Before we start the program, I want to make sure everyone understands that we often talk about OSHA and EPA citations, along with some other regulatory actions from other agencies, legal cases, and criminal activity. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Proposed fines are exactly that, and they are often litigated, reduced, or vacated. We use available public records, news accounts, and press releases. We cannot warranty or guarantee the details of any of the stories we share, since we are not directly involved with these stories, at least not most of the time. Enjoy the show.
This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
Hello. If you're on the video feed, we had a problem yesterday with the video. So, human error is normal on that, and cyber error is always normal. They're out to get me. No. It's the machines. We came across time to save you, Sarah. No. From the Terminator. In case you're wondering. Anyway. Very interesting day. Has anybody out there listened to or seen or watched the Robert F. Kennedy stuff? Again, we were ahead of our time. We're going to talk about that. With that, right on the reporting on here, on this program. So if you listen to me, you're going to be ahead on a lot of stuff that's out there. We're willing to say what no one else is willing to say. With that. And it all comes down to credibility. So, we are here. It's Thursday, September 4th, 2025. So, this is Disaster Preparation Month 2025. We're going to be talking about disaster preparation just about every program. Over the weekend, we're going to, on Rumble, we're going to have like a best of show where we're going to broadcast a couple of hours of stuff out there. Oh, we'll see how it goes. I don't know how it's going to go. Short week this week. So I'm on the road this week, and as we know, the my travel day, I gotta get up like 3:30 in the morning the first day of the work week. And it doesn't, it ain't easy, man. But we do it. Why? Because we're out there to serve people. We're out there to make the world a safer place. Yes, we are. And I do mean that. That's what our mission is here on Safety FM. It's engagement. It's, training. It's empowerment. It's a lot of stuff, asking those difficult questions. So today, what are we going to talk about with disasters? And like I said yesterday, our way to safety, right? And what is safety? Let's define some terms. Safety is capacity and resilience, your ability to do stuff and your ability to adapt. So, with the FEMA cuts, even to the Centers for Disease Control, I'm sorry, I got CDC on my mind, but that's true. Even to the Community Emergency Response Team, it falls on us more and more to protect ourselves, to prepare our families, to prepare our communities. First thing you have to do is prepare yourself. Prepare yourself. Then you prepare your family. Then you prepare your neighborhood as you're able. Then community. And you get all the communities preparing together. Now you have a national framework. And you could be that leader out there in your community. With that, right? And learn to be a leader. We have leadership resources here on Safety FM and on Safety Wars. So before we talk about disaster, let's talk. Now, I always talk about disasters. And first thing we have to do is decide what kind of disaster we're going to have. So I'm going to share the FEMA website here. So this is ready.gov, be informed. They list all these hazards here, right? Emergency alerts, attack in public places, avalanche, biohazard exposure, cybersecurity, a drought, earthquakes, explosions, extreme heat, floods, chemicals, home fires, home safety, household chemicals, landslides, hurricanes, landslides, and debris flows, pandemic, power outages, severe weather, space weather, which we had on Monday night, thunderstorms and lightning, tornadoes, tsunamis, volcanoes, wildfires, winter weather, right? And then recovering about that from a disaster. Some of the things that are not on there: medical emergencies. So I used to, and maybe I need to do that again, define the different kinds of disasters you're going to be faced with. There's usually, let me see, 3 or 4. 0 to 24s, right? And that's what most people are going to face in their life. A 0 to 24. Let me get a graphic here, right on here. We're just going to do this in real time. So scenario 1, let's do a screen share here. So let me do, yeah, I like the whiteboards, as you can tell, right? So we have scenario 1, and we're dealing with 0 to 24 hours. What is that? We're talking about something real simple here. Maybe we're talking about short-term power outages, fire alarms, fires, medical emergencies, right? Things like that, short term. Then we have scenario 2. And if you are wondering at home, yes, I am typing this in real time in here. All right, so we're going to do scenario 2. What is that? You're looking at 24 to 72 hours. What are we talking about? We're talking about, right, floods, maybe, longer term power outages, civil unrest, right? And this is what we are told to be prepared for, right? Scenario 2. Then you have scenario 3. What are we talking about? We're talking about, right, 72 hours to 30 days. Now you start to get into something a little bit more. You have long-term disruptions, right? Catastrophic situations, right? Now you start to get into something a little bit more. You have to up your game here. Up your game with that. So, for example, now, right, we can have 3 days worth of food in the house. We can have 3 days worth of water. We can have 3 days worth of managing things. We can do that. That's not, you can do that. It may be a little bit hard. It may take you a week or two to get prepared for something like that. Well, we're going to have nothing for 3 days. Easy to get prepared for. But then you go into what is called scenario 3. That is when the Główno hits the fan, like we say here. And we're, no, I'm not saying that in honor of the Polish president here in the United States today. He met with President Trump. No. What we're talking about is serious stuff. Imagine having to have 30 days or ensure 30 days of water in the house or in your apartment. It's even more challenging if you're in an apartment, condo, that sort of thing. A house, you might have a backyard. You may have a little bit more room, depending on the size of the house. So now you're 30 days. What are you going to do with that? 30 days worth of food. That's a lot. They do have survival food sources out there. Advertised all the time on the radio and on the internet, right? Especially on Rumble. You get them all the time. You get whacked. Boom, 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 boom. But what ends up happening is these longer-term catastrophic situations, it's a lot of food. That's, just imagine, 2 gallons of water per person. Let's say you are a family of 2. That is 4 gallons a day times 30 days, 120 gallons of water. That is 2.5 drums just for cooking and eating and drinking, that sort of thing. That's a lot of water. We're not including bathing. We're not including decontamination if you need it, if you have a real serious situation. A lot of stuff going on there for, scenario 3. And then you have scenario 4. And, we'll go through all this stuff. Scenario 4. Right? 30 days plus, and you're dealing with primitive living or off the grid. That's what you're dealing with here. So that's what you look at, the 4 different scenarios here. Right? Let us make it all the same font size, 18. Right, that's what you're looking at here with this. You're looking at primitive living. At that point, if you're out for 30 days, you're talking a major, like the prepper community. And by the way, if you've ever bought an extra can of beans at the store, guess what? Welcome to the prepper community. You're one of us, right? With that, just like 7 to 10% of all Americans. Now you're dealing with serious situations here, 30 days plus, because now you can't store that kind of water unless you have some massive storage facility of some sort, right? With that, so now you're getting into water purification, you're getting into managing your water, collecting rainwater, which is, by the way, illegal in some states. Where are you going to get water? Where are you going to get food for 30 days? That's an awful lot of food. Right? And is it going to be food that you like or not get tired of? Do you have variety on there? All that stuff has to go in there. So let's talk about it. We mentioned all of these things, but what other emergencies are there? It could be a financial emergency. It could be a death in the family. That could be an emergency. That could be major illness, anything like that. That can also be a disaster. So disaster, now we like to think of all these exotic things, but unfortunately disaster is in the mundane often here, all right, with all this stuff. So with that, got to do assess, analyze, and act, and you got to figure out what you're going to do. So we're going to go into the next thing. We're going to go to commercial break, and we're going to go into some of the things out there that, what you're going to be facing, what I've had to deal with family members being sick. So we're going to be right back at you here on Safety Wars, and that's basically it. So hold on.
From the front lines of the safety war, it's Safety Wars with your host, Jim Posel on Safety FM. Get ready to face the harsh reality.
Yes, the harsh reality.
In a world where danger lurks in every corner, one man stands as a beacon of hope. Jim Posel, a veteran safety expert with over 3 decades of experience, now bringing his knowledge to you with Safety Wars. Engaging, informative, and always relevant. That's Safety Wars. Join the safety revolution with Safety Wars, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts and videos.
Is your safety training old, stale, and hackneyed? Is your safety trainer still preaching a warped version of behavior-based safety? How about safety training that actually addresses your hazards in your workplaces and is not standardized baloney from 25 years ago? Contact the Safety Wars team at safetywars.com or call Jim Posel at 845-269-5772. Remember, if you're receiving this message, you are the solution to unsafe workplaces. OSHA recordables, catastrophic losses, environmental disasters. You want answers? So do I. This is Jim Posel with Safety Wars.
That's my daddy!
Yes, here we are. We are back. So what are we going to talk about next? We talked about that, the different types of disasters out there. Now we're moving into the main thing, medical stuff. So let's say you have to manage a medical situation with people. We're not talking first aid CPR. This is beyond first aid CPR. You're calling 911. You're taking a loved one to the hospital. You're taking a loved one to a regular doctor's appointment. You have to call an ambulance. Anything like that. There's going to be a lot, there's going to be a lot of questions that you have to answer. And I get the reason why we ask some of the they go through the questions. One, to ascertain what's going on with the patient. We get that, right? There's no conspiracy there. But the other thing is that they try to get you distracted from the situation. Say they're doing something to your loved one that, like CPR, AED, the other stuff, things going on there and everything else. They want to distract you, so they will try to interview you and everything else. They want to get the information, but on the other hand, it's part of the thing to keep you occupied. So maybe you don't interfere with that. So what we developed, we meaning my family, right? So my mom and my dad had extended illnesses. Let me clear out some of this stuff in the background here. My mom and dad had extended illnesses. We're all aware here. They passed away recently. And we also had other family members pass away. So I went through this multiple times, multiple family members, on how all of these questions get asked, right here. And my mother-in-law also, right on my front porch, Nancy. Now, we developed a checklist here, or a list here, and I presented this multiple times in front for multiple groups here, and they said this is out of all your disaster preparation stuff, this is probably the most practical. So this is a chart that we developed here, and let me turn down the music here. Right, we have. When I rework this program, it's going to be a wonderful thing. I tell you what. So, what do you need to have? What are they going to ask you? It's 1, the name of the patient. Number 2, what's the patient's address? Number 3, what are the major medical problems? If you're on the video here, you get to see this. And emergency contacts. In case of emergency, who do you call? Right? Maybe you want to put your health advocate on here. Right? Next of kin. Anything like that. Right? This so you're organized. You have it all together with everything. Then you go into the, right? What kind of medicines are you on? Right? Now, most people, all right, if you have serious health problems, you may have to take medicine 4 or more times a day. So you have what your morning. Now we're going to list this twice, and it's a reason why we do it twice is 1 is for the caregiver. So this top portion, right, where we have a morning, afternoon, midday, and evening, right? That is for the caretaker. Why? Because real simple. You're going to have to be administering medication, or maybe you're going to be working with your doctor to manage the medicine with a doctor. Because as we know, some medicines you only are supposed to take during the morning, or maybe at night, or between meals, or maybe in the afternoon, or maybe on an as-needed basis, like those funny little blue and yellow pills out there, right? With that, or you have an urgent need for something. But anyway, you're going to have that sort of thing over there, right, with us, right? What kind of medicines? And you're gonna, because I've got into a thing where the pharmacist tells us, well, you take this and this and this and this, and I'm not saying discount the pharmacist. What I'm saying is, the pharmacist may say one thing, and the doctor may say something else. You would hope that they would, and you would think they would be aligned. That ain't the way it is, folks. So what we do is this. We list what the morning medicine is, what the dose is, which doctor prescribed that. Right? That's what you do. So which doctor prescribed it? And what I would recommend, and it is a pet peeve of mine with this, is you use the correct names for things. So if you have a beta blocker, for example, you can have metoprolol, you can have buterol, you can have many different types of alls. There's like 10 different beta blockers. So don't put down beta blocker. Maybe you want to put down metoprolol, beta blocker. That's a good one, right? Then the dose. What kind of dose are you looking at? And then the doctor that prescribed it. So when you're filling out, so when you are like us, where you have those trays, those little trays with the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? Or pill boxes, sometimes they're called, and it depends on what part of the country you're from and what your, inclination is to call them. We'll be polite. And, right, so you're able to fill that out. Then you say, well, Jim, I already have that listed. Why am I listing this again? So then you go and you figure out what the medicine is, what the dose is, how many times per day are you taking it, what it is for, and what the start date is. Any guess on why you would do that? Maybe, do I have a timer on here so you could put that in here? No, I don't have one here. Well, something close. Why would you want to have that second part there where you want to list them again? Okay, real simple reason why. When the ambulance comes, or when you go to a doctor's office, or you want to go to an emergency room or an urgent care, that is the order of that goes into the computer. That's what I've been told. Maybe they changed the computer program. But when they're checking you in, and a nurse or an EMT or a receptionist or whoever is there, they're going off, well, medicine, dose, how many times per day, what is it for, and what's the start date? Now you would think, well, this is the medicine, right? Well, what is it for? Medicines could be, used for different things off-label. So, for example, let's say that you're going to be with sildenafil. We know what sildenafil is for. It's Viagra. Well, Viagra has the obvious urgent need. Why are you talking about Viagra? Well, let me explain it to you. Now I got your attention. All right. You have that urgent need, but it also is used for other things. For example, breathing problems, right? So you need to put that in there, because if you just put that in Viagra, they're going to be like, well, what is it for? And it's like, it's for, it's not going to work. Let's say you're dealing with metoprolol. Metoprolol is a beta blocker, and it slows the heart down with that. So metoprolol can be used for that, but it's also used as an anti-anxiety medication sometimes. So guess what? People that may need to be in there. Medical marijuana. Why are you on medical marijuana? Well, is it because my back is fouled up? My knee is fouled up? I need something just to relax? Need something for sleeping? I don't know. Might want to put that on. And things of that nature. What's the start date? And I left one thing out here. Who's the doctor? Right? Who is the doctor? And let me share that again, right? Who's the doctor here? And then you put it down in here. What is the doctor number 1 and the phone number and what they are for? That's what you got to have on here. What they are for. Why do you have that doctor? What are they for? Right? And another thing, is something over the counter. So if your doctor tells you to take aspirin therapy, that would be over the counter. If your doctor tells you you're anemic and your doctor puts you on iron, again, that's over the counter. That all goes in there. Some other things. Insurance information. What is the insurance information that you have? What are your insurance policies with that? Again, in an emergency, people are freaking out. Maybe you want to have, now because you can cut and paste things now in photos, you might want to have a picture of your insurance card. Picture of your driver's license on here or other identifying information. And what is the preferred hospital? So, for example, my father-in-law has a preferred hospital that he needs to go to for his health issues, but also that is the insurance company's preferred hospital. And let's not forget, let's take this into the workplace. So you're in a workplace, and there are different levels of hospitals out there. We won't talk about it today. So, for example, we're across the street on one project, somebody gets hurt. We say, oh, thank God, we'll take them to the hospital across the street. We go across the street, and they're like, we don't treat that here. Now, you may say, well, Jim, that's ridiculous. So my brother John, and this happened, he's been dead since 2016, so this happened a long time ago. He went into a hospital. He had a medical issue. They had to call the ambulance. He goes in the hospital, and he's in there, and a pregnant woman comes in, not a pregnant person, a pregnant woman comes in there and has to, she's there. It's going to happen. She's going to deliver the baby right then, right there. And they said, we do not do baby deliveries here. But they can't, the person is not ambulatory. So what do they end up doing? They end up going, and you would think this is a big hospital, popular hospital. I don't do that. So they take the person, the woman, and they go in behind the nurse's station. They put on the thing. Has anybody here ever delivered a baby? Please report to the nurse's station. And this very experienced nurse comes over and says, yeah, I delivered a baby one time about 35 years ago. They said, well, you're on. So they ended up delivering the baby right then and there. So that does happen. So, my brother got a big kick out of it when he heard this. So, what's the preferred hospital? What's the appropriate hospital? With my father, the day before he died, he had a medical issue. He was in a rehab facility. This was, I believe, a Wednesday, and they were playing games in there. He was having a medical complication. I called up his doctor. His doctor said, Jimmy, this is what you're going to need to do. You're going to go and call 911. You're going to get him in an ambulance and take him to such and such a hospital. I will meet you there. He needs emergency surgery. I go up to yes, doctor, taken care of. We'll meet you there. Says, I'm on the New Jersey Turnpike. I am turning my butt around. He didn't say that. And I will meet you at the hospital. No problem. So we end up going. And I go up to nurse's aid station. I just got off the phone with my father's doctor. My father's doctor says to call 911 and to get him in an ambulance and go to Robert Wood Johnson Hospital in New Brunswick. The doctor will meet him there. Well, we can't do that. We got to get on our internist. Okay, you do what you need to do, but call 911. Oh, okay. I will be in his room right over there, 50 foot away, and tell me when that happens. I will be with my father getting him prepared. Got to pack up his stuff and everything else. Yes, very well, Mr. Posel. I go into the hospital, into the rehab room, and I'm waiting there 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Now, I know for basic life support in that area in Middlesex County in Edison, New Jersey, that the response time is X number of minutes. I know that. Why? Because I am the safety warrior. I know that. I know my neighborhood that I grew up in. So 5 minutes goes by. I go back to the nurse's station. Did you call 911? No, we're waiting for our internist to come over. I said, no, you are not. I said, you have a choice here to make. And by then, security was here. And I said, it's very simple, very nicely. You have a choice to make. Either you're going to call 911 and get the person here, or I'm going to call 911 and get the ambulance here, and it's going to embarrass the crap out of you. Ball's in your court. What are you going to do? So what do you think she did? She picked up the phone, called 911. Ambulance is on the way. By that time, the internist comes in there. The guy on duty, God bless him, nice guy, didn't know what was going on, but he had to follow the procedures. Because you got to follow those freaking procedures. We got to know. It's like, how long have you been a doctor? You don't know the procedures now? What you're supposed? You've been here for 2 years, 3 years. Hell, I even think you were here when my brother was here. You don't know what the procedures are? Are you serious? I said, this is what it is. The ambulance is on the way here. He's going to go to Robert Wood Johnson. That's what the procedure is. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Meantime, ambulance pulls up. They come in there. I meet them out front because this is during an emergency. This is what you're supposed to do. The ambulance, this is a pretty sizable facility. I went out there to meet the ambulance and direct them into my father's room to make sure we don't have them looking around this facility for where my father is, even though I told them they know what the room number is. So I meet them. We're in room, whatever it was, right? We come walking into the room. Okay, here he is. And now the internist who's took his vitals, all right. Well, he has this, so I'm not exactly sure. And they're bickering back and forth. After about 30 seconds of this, I said, can everybody please be quiet here? And they said, this is what the issue is. And I looked at it. This is the issue. That's the issue. That's the issue. He needs emergency surgery. He's going to Robert Wood Johnson Hospital. That is where you are to take him. And what do you think I did? I go and I whip out. They start with the questions. And what do you think I do? I whip out this thing and I said, here is his medication. You go and you go. This is all the information you're going to need. So you know what the EMT person says, right? The head EMT person. He says, Mr. Posel. May I call you? Yeah, Mr. Posel. He says, I wish everybody was like you. Make my job a lot easier. Okay, everybody, pack them up. Let's go. Right? He says on the way out, he says, what do you do for a living? I said, well, I'm a certified safety professional. I deal with emergencies and the workplace. I've been through this a couple of times. And he said, man, this medicine list is a great thing. Never saw anybody have it. So comprehensive, so good. I said, yeah, here, you can look me up on the Safety Wars podcast, and I give him a business card, of course. My father couldn't have been prouder. Unfortunately, the emergency surgery did not go the way that we expected it to go, and he passed away 2 days later. Right? So this is something that, right, that and it happens. But you need to be prepared ahead of time. I include this in my first aid CPR courses here, which we teach 845-269-5772, or jim@safetywars.com. I prefer a text message for 526957772. You come in direct contact with me, and I can teach you your first aid CPR. Or maybe you just want to go over something like this here as a training, as a monthly training. We could go in there and we could do this. The other thing that you want to do, right? Let's say that you are at home. This is good. You also want to have the hospital address, and directions to the hospital. You want to be able to take a dry run to that hospital. Then you can say, well, Jim, why would we have to do a dry run to the hospital? Believe me, in a panic situation where you're dealing with, and I know of a family that went through this. They had a family member come down with major illness down there. Eventually it killed them. But what happened was, had they got him to the hospital sooner, probably would not have killed him. They could have done something. And what happened was, he was having a problem, 911. 911 did not come right away. Why? Because they were in the middle of a rural area to begin with. And you had you had 2 car accidents in that little town and multiple fatalities with both accidents. So they were, they didn't know what was going on with him, but they knew what was going on with all these injuries and fatalities and everything. So they were all tied up. So you might have to get that person yourself to the hospital, urgent care, what have you. So now you have to drive the person there. I've heard of cases where people have called an Uber to get people to the hospital, right? Also, I don't know, or Lyft, Uber or Lyft. I'm not saying that should be your plan, but it's capacity. It is capacity that you can have on there, and get them right with that. So that's something that you need to you have to be prepared for. You got to think about it. You got to plan out. And with that, we're going to get down to the regular news also. And let's go to another commercial break.
From the front lines of the safety war, it's Safety Wars, with your host, Jim Posel on Safety FM. Get ready to face the harsh reality.
In the professional safety community, communication and planning are just a few keys to your program's success. The question many practitioners have is, where do I start? Dr. Jay Allen, the creator of the Safety FM platform and host of the Rated R Safety Show, has built a global foundation to help you along the way. Go to safetyfm.com and listen to some of the industry's best and most involved professionals, including Blaine Hoffman with the Safety Pro, Sam Goodman with the Hop Nerd, Sheldon Primus with the Safety Consultant, Jim Posel with Safety Wars, Emily Elrod with Unapologetically Bold, and many others. As individuals, we can do great things, but as a team, we become amazing. Dial into safetyfm.com today and surround yourself with a powerful force of knowledge and support.
The safety war has begun. The risks are out there, lurking in every corner of the workplace, threatening our most valuable asset, our people. But we have a plan. Led by Jim Posel, we are the last line of defense in this battle against danger and negligence. We will fight for safety, for compliance, for the right of every worker to return home unscathed. Join us on this journey through the unknown, where vigilance is our weapon and knowledge is our shield. This is Safety Wars, our fight, our duty, our mission. Heard regularly on your favorite podcast platform as Safety Wars, visit us at safetywars.com.
Okay, so, very exciting today up on Capitol Hill. Right, I gotta watch on the time here, right? So we got, by my count, about 20 minutes in. We're gonna be slightly late, and I apologize for getting to our live show on Safety FM. So here we have, and by the way, we were ahead on some of this stuff here, as usual. All right, 5 takeaways for intense RFK Jr. hearing. This is from CNN. U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. testified Thursday in perhaps the most combative congressional hearing of 2025. I guess, unfortunately, honesty, right? Getting things out in the open out there, right, is combative sometimes. In an era of universal deceit, the truth is a revolutionary act. George Orwell. All right, USCN, people like to hear the truth sometimes on either side. So Robert F. Kennedy appeared in front of the Senate Finance Committee amid growing storm of his engulfing his department, including the recent firing of the CDC director who had been confirmed less than a month earlier, a series of moves that could limit vaccine access, and the canceling of $500 million of research into mRNA vaccines. It's all, right? It's all led even some Republicans to raise alarms about what's happening at HHS. So, 5 takeaways is from CNN. Senators tried to pick Kennedy against Trump. Republican politicians often speak to the audience of one, subtly gearing their comments toward Trump. On Thursday, it was both Republican and Democrats employing this tactic. A series of senators tried to pit Kennedy against the president, suggesting Kennedy was undermining Trump and the success of Operation Warp Speed, the COVID-19 vaccine program that Trump launched late in his first term. It was as if they were trying to get Trump to intervene. It started with GOP Senator Bill Cassidy, an MD who was crucial to Kennedy winning confirmation earlier this year, but has grown alarmed by his moves with vaccinations. Right? With that. That's number 1. Right? Number 2, other Republicans delivered rushbacks to Kennedy. While Cassidy was perhaps the most anticipated Republican questioner on the panel, he wasn't the only one to raise concerns about Kennedy's vaccine moves. Others did more gently, but in ways that suggested Kennedy should be careful. Perhaps the most surprising was Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming, the number 2 Republican in the chamber. Secretary Kennedy, in your confirmation hearings, you promised to uphold the highest standards for vaccines. Since then, I have grown deeply concerned. The 4th-term senator, who is also an orthopedic surgeon, added, there are real concerns that safe proven vaccines like measles, hepatitis B, and others could be in jeopardy, and that would put Americans at risk. Right? Kennedy's vaccine skepticism was hardly a secret when he was confirmed, but the subject didn't seem to interest many Republicans besides Cassidy back then. It clearly does now. Number 3, Kennedy was usually combative. It's difficult to overstate how combative Kennedy was during this hearing, whether that's because of the pressure he's under or because he deduced that that's what Trump likes to see. It was striking. After Cassidy pressed him on Operation Warp Speed, Kennedy responded, is that a question, Senator Cassidy, or is that a speech that you don't want me to answer? After Louisiana Republican claimed that Kennedy's moves mean effectively we're denying people vaccines, the HHS secretary shot back, you're wrong. Kennedy accused the Democrats on the committee of making stuff up. He told one, I don't know what you're talking about. He accused another of talking gibberish. Watch the whole, I tell you, I'm going to post the whole thing over the weekend here, right? Kennedy struggled to account for his promise on vaccine access. Perhaps the most significant policy question looming over the hearing and the future of Kennedy and the CDC is that one Cassidy concluded with, how much Kennedy's actions are actually going to restrict access to vaccines. During his confirmation hearings in January, Kennedy made a very broad promise. I will do nothing as HHS secretary that makes it difficult or discourages people from taking vaccines. But HHS moves have clearly jeopardized access to COVID vaccines. By narrowing their approval, the agency has added barriers for people if they can even get them at all. Right? And then there was other testimony. Now, number 5, what to watch next. Kennedy was asked to respond to the recently ousted CDC director, Dr. Susan Maneras' claim about him in a Wall Street Journal op-ed Thursday. She wrote that during a meeting in late August with Kennedy, she was told to pre-approve the recommendations of a vaccine advisory committee to which Kennedy has recently appointed some vaccine skeptics. Kennedy not only flatly denied it, but accused Maneras of lying. I did not say that to her, Kennedy said repeatedly. Often in such circumstances, witnesses will talk around the issue and suggest that maybe there was a misunderstanding, but Kennedy did not do that. Maneris's attorneys responded Thursday by saying Maneris stands by her account and would repeat it all under oath. It will be interesting to see if another committee, such as Cassidy's Senate Health Committee, probes further. Not only could Maneris be called to testify, but so could another top HHS official, Jim O'Neill, who was in the meeting Maneris wrote about and has since replaced her as acting director. So those are the highlights, according to CNN. Obviously, Fox News has a different take on this, right? Here you go. Oh, you gotta love this. Vance curses out senators after heated Kennedy hearing, full of.
Let's begin with our senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram. He has more on what we just.
Oh,
heard.
hold on. Sorry. Hey there, guys. I hate it when you open up a web page and there's a. It comes on. I was like, what the hell is that? You know? With that. So, where are we? All right. Yeah, I got thrown off. Vice President Vance curses out senators after heated Kennedy hearing, full of gluvno, and everyone knows it. White House officials rally behind the HHS secretary following confrontational finance committee hearing. Vice President J.D. Vance shot back at senators who clashed with HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy at a hearing before the Senate Finance Committee. Senator Ron Wadeen pressed Kennedy during the hearing, going on and on, right? So, again, this is what we see here between two different sources here. Kennedy countered by noting Wadeen's decades in office while chronic disease rates climbed to 76%. He was like, what the hell are you guys doing here? You have all these problems. You're presiding over the oversight. Why didn't you say anything on chronic diseases? Right? And Vance wrote in an X post, when I see all these senators trying to lecture and gotcha Bobby Kennedy today, all I can think is, you all supported off-label, untested, and irreversible hormonal therapies for children, mutilating our kids and enriching Big Pharma. You're full of gluvno, and everyone knows it. Secretary Kennedy reposted, right? With that. Thank you. With that. So basically, what's the point? Two wrongs don't make a right here. Let's remember that. Because someone else does something wrong doesn't mean that what their points are invalid when they talk to you. Right? But on the other hand, just because someone else does something wrong doesn't mean that you could do something wrong with that. Or, perceived wrong. I mean, that's very controversial here with the hormonal HRT. Hormone replacement therapy is extremely controversial, and they're talking now with restricting Second Amendment rights to people on that therapy. So, with that, I tell you what. Now, we were ahead of the game here, and I'm going to depart from our normal procedure here. You go back to June 19th, and I did a deep dive on this article. The veteran health and this is off of Vox.com, the story by Noam Hassenfeld. This was an interview that he did. This veteran health official watched Americans lose trust in science. How do we regain it back? Francis Collins of the NIH, NASA's National Institutes for Health, for a decade before his dismantling, he's searching for answers. And I tell you what, this article here, which I went into in depth on our June 19th show, which I'm going to replay here, nothing in his years of leading biomedical research for U.S. government could have prepared him for disruption at the NIH. Over 1,000 employees at the NIH were suddenly fired at the beginning of April. Right? And it goes on and on and on. Right? In the past few months, Collins saw scientists placed under communication gag orders, restrained from speaking freely, even when no media were present. You were effectively muzzled. Right? And it's going on. So I pulled my folks together in a conference room. They did not know what was coming, and I told them by tomorrow night, I'm no longer going to be here. He said this in 2021. And we all cried. I never thought it would end this way. My wife came to pick me up on the last Friday and said, this is how it's going to end. Just 4 years ago, Collins was President Trump's NIH director, now in Trump's second term. He's resigning under pressure. How do we get from a world where NIH was universally recognized as the jewel of scientific research, right, to what we have now, right? I'm constantly hearing that Americans have lost, this is him asking a question, lost trust in science. Is that fair to say? Quote, I think it's totally fair. You can look at all the surveys about trust. This is from a mainstream scientist here. Americans have lost trust in almost every institution. But I think it is more than that. I think COVID did a lot of harm to people's trust in science because, first of all, it was a huge, disastrous experience for the world. Right? There were days where thousands of Americans were dying. As one of those people was communicating with the public what we knew about the virus, what they might do to protect themselves, we were doing the best we could with the information we had, but the information was incomplete. So you had to change recommendations over time because we learned more about the virus, about the pandemic, and people began to wonder, do these guys know what they're doing? Soon, suddenly, this has become a target for an attack. Right? When it's becoming clear that more than 50 million Americans aren't getting the vaccine, one of the most remarkable scientific achievements in human history, did that tell you anything about the pursuit of science and how it works? It certainly woke me up to the fact that we apparently had not done a very good job in explaining to people that when the science is tackling some really hard problems and occasionally gets the answer wrong, it's going to get self-corrected because that science is about truth. Right? Now, and he goes on and on. Right? So, this is probably the most important part of this interview because it's directly applicable to us, the health and safety field here, because this is where we get into the problems. Is in this. It seems like you believe that all you had to do was develop the vaccine to get things going that worked, and then people would take it. Then there's the whole other piece of convincing people that you and the scientific community at large didn't do. Yep, I was naive about the science communication and how it works. And I was, without knowing, to call it this, an adherent to the knowledge deficit model. What does that mean? That means that if you're trying to communicate science to get someone to make a decision, it's because they're missing knowledge, and you're going to provide that. You're going to fill in their deficit, and everything will be fine. Right? You just tell them, here's the fact, and now they believe in the fact? Yes, I am an expert. Here's the fact, and they'll make the right decision. But no, it doesn't work that way, especially when there's already skepticism and distrust. You're seen as an elitist who maybe has an axe to grind or something you're trying to put over on them, and you may even do more harm than good by going after someone's misunderstandings head on. They're just going to dig in their heels more thoroughly. I tell you what, this dude, right, has some very good points here. Right? Francis Collins. Very, very good points here. That's why it's important to read, and to read varied things that you may not normally read here. And this is from Vox.com. Right? I guess what I've learned is we need to learn to do a lot more listening. Right? Listen! And really understand where people are coming from. So that means you have to have a dialogue and also be prepared to tell stories instead of going down the road with statistics, for that's what's challenging. For a scientist, that sounds like an anecdote, and I would never get away with that in a seminar room. But it's not a seminar room, people. We need to actually find better ways to help people communicate what we do. And with that, right, we're right up against this. With that, we're going to call it a day. And we will see you, God willing, this weekend. For Safety Wars, this is Jim Posel, and we'll see you. You'll find out what we're doing and everything else out there. So, here we go. Is there safety? Oh,
The safety war has begun.
Is there outro? I hit the wrong button, guys. Sorry.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.